Good afternoon. So I'll start the topic, the next topic to be presented, which is how about eco-designing the nuclear facilities. So I'll present that into 4 parts. The first one is what is our carbon context. Of course, it's the first thing to understand to do before doing anything. Second point, where we are in terms of laws in France, but also in other countries. And then how can we apply that on nuclear sector, and finishing with some start of proposals. So my sources mainly are first the IPCC report number 5, which is the GIEC report for the French. It's about 200 guys, experts in terms of climate, reading thousands of publications and doing some analysis, so it's pretty useful. The second sources mainly are the French data of the transition minister sector. Third one is the one study done by EDF about life cycle assessment on nuclear projects. And the last one is the RTE study to anticipate our future electrical need. So if you have something to get from this presentation, I would say it's those 2 slides, those 2 pictures. The first one is showing on the left the overall world CO2 emissions. You can see that starting from the 50s, we came from a few gigatons of CO2 per year to 30, 40. Today, 2010, I think we are at 50 gigatons of CO2 emitted per year. So it's rising quickly. And the second picture is, in fact, it's an estimate. If we accept 2 degrees of temperature increase all over the planet, average, we have a budget of circa 3,000 gigatons to be emitted within the atmosphere. And today, in fact, we have already spent and emitted 2/3 of it. So in fact, we have in front of us a remaining budget of 1,000 gigatons of CO2 that we can emit within the atmosphere. If we exceed that, then the heating will be more than 2 degrees. So for example, in the IPCC study, if you go for a plus 3 degree overall on the planet increase, then this budget is increasing from 3,000 gigatons to 4,000 gigatons. So just to give you some ideas of the range. And in the same time, you need to know that the oil resources available are circa 50,000 gigatons. So in fact, probably we will not miss oil resources. We will not be able to spend it, in fact. Because if we issue 50,000 gigatons in the atmosphere, then of course we will increase by largely over the 1,000 gigatons we can emit in the atmosphere. Any question on that? Because this is an important point to address. In fact, if you... okay.
Does the anthropogenic CO2 emission takes into consideration agriculture, or it is only industrial?
These CO2 emissions are overall, all sectors included, of course, so it's including agriculture and so on. And it's also including the carbone, le puits, comment tu dis ça, le puits carbone, le puits, comment? It includes the carbon storage that is done by the forestry, in fact, mainly. So just a few figures. I will not go through it, but there are many data that shows that, for example, the temperature increase in terms of decade is rising. The surface of the sea ice on the Arctic is reducing. Here on the middle, it's on million kilometers square. The overall sea level is also slightly moving up. And in fact, what is pretty important, the greenhouse gas concentration in the atmosphere has risen from, I think it was 250 ppm for CO2, up to now 400 in the atmosphere, in the current atmosphere. 400 ppm in the current atmosphere. It's the red one, this one. Sorry, this one, the green one. And in fact, the variation, natural variation of the climate is here, in fact, within plus minus 0.1 degrees. And what is today observed is the global warming that is exceeding 0.5. So we are over, in fact, the natural variation of the climate. This is just also an idea of, in terms of the GRQ nomination for the year 2050, the goal is to be in here. In fact, on the bottom you have the population, and on the other axis you have the CO2 that is emitted by each inhabitant of the planet per country. So, in fact, when you have a large area, that means you have a large emitter of CO2. So you have an idea of where the countries are depending upon their development. And the goal for IPCC is here. It's at less than 2 tons per habitant. So we can see that we have something pretty complex to achieve, in fact, up to year 2050. So what about the French national policy? Just before explaining that, just for you to explain the difference between what we call national inventories, which is in fact the quantity of CO2 that is built inside a country, and the carbon footprint, which is also taking on board the when you are importing a lot of goods, it takes also the CO2 that is related to the fabrication of those goods.
Like methane, or no other climate gases are you considering? Methane and so on.
Yeah, I did not summarize, but in fact this is equivalent greenhouse gas emission. So it includes mainly it's 75% CO2, but it also includes NH4 and so on, and a few gases that are in much less quantity, but much more largely emitting. So. Carbon footprint is including the what you import. So, for example, for France is in 1 year is emitting 600 million tons of CO2. But if you take the national inventory, you have only 430 million tons. So there is a large difference, and the difference is due to the imported goods. I think after in my figures, I will talk about national inventory because they are used as a basis of the laws, in fact. So in France, this is year 2019. Circa we emit 440 million tons of CO2 in a year, and you see how the split is done. So of course, transportation is very important. And energy sector here is circa 40 million tons. So it's pretty small, 10%, compared to other countries due to nuclear, in fact, electricity. But still, it's something that is significant at the scale of one country. And I will focus on this one, on those 40 million tons. The UTCAFT is the forestry that is capturing 30 million tons a year. Okay. So, what is saying the law today, the energy transition law, la loi de transition énergétique in France? It is saying in 2050 we have to go from today to 80 million tons of CO2. And I would say that the government has done its job. That means deciding where we will be allowed to spend CO2 in year 2050. So because if you ask to anyone, of course, anyone will say, okay, I'm probably good, and probably the other sector should do something. But so that's why I think it's a government job, and they did it. They did the split, saying, okay, in France, we will keep a large amount for agriculture, because in fact you have something that is difficult to manage, and it's also an important sector in France. So Okay, but for the for the electricity generation, what is allowed is this one. So I will come to more detailed figures, but this is showing that the goals are high, in fact, in terms of CO2 reduction. And it's today a law with a strategy that is called Low Carbon National Strategy, Stratégie Nationale Bas Carbone, who is explaining that, in fact. I did a comparison with UK policy. In fact, UK is doing exactly the same. Today, UK is emitting 450 million tons, so pretty similar to France. And they have the same goal through the net zero strategy, which is included in a government act. And they also plan to be at 80 million tons. And you see that the way they decided to split is different because it's also depending upon where the country is today. And for example, shipping seems pretty important for UK. But what is interesting is that for both countries, for power generation, electricity generation, they decided to be at a very small scale, 1.2 million tons for UK and 2 million tons for France, which is pretty challenging, in fact, for our future jobs. So that means a division by a factor of circa 15. So for the energy sector, there is a clear opportunity for nuclear, because nuclear, as you see here in the IPCC table, is circa from 3 to 10, well, I would say in France, 10 grams per CO2 emitted per kilowatt-hour generated, compared to coal production, of course, is much higher, 800 grams. Even other renewable energy are, I would say, the same order of magnitude as nuclear, so there is a real opportunity for nuclear. And if we go more further on the details, so if you look for the RTE study, decarbonization is about electrification, in fact, because it's moving from fossil generation to electrical generation in order to avoid to emit CO2. So the plan for RTE is probably, because there are several scenarios in the RTE study, to raise up the electricity production by 30%, more or less, year 2050, in order to reduce the energy consumption, the primary energy consumption. So if we look to more detail to that, what does it mean? That means that today, among the 40 million tons of CO2 emitted today on the energy sector, we emit 30 million for electricity generation, because you have some other use, such as a refinery. So today, 30 million tons CO2, if we take the low goals, SNBC goals, we have to divide by 15 to go to 2 million tons. If we do it equally, that's one assumption, that means that nuclear should be maintained to 200,000 tons of CO2 per year. And today we have 1.4 million tons, lowest estimate, EDF figures. So the question is, how do we come from 1.4 million tons a year to 200,000 tons? Some could say, okay, nuclear energy has a very low rate of CO2 production, so we should focus and keep these 2 million ton budgets for nuclear. But if we do so, including that we have to increase electricity by 30%, that would come to, in fact, taking almost all of the possibility of emitting 2 million tons to nuclear, and to say to all other renewable energy that they have to produce at zero carbon, which might be a bit difficult to sell, in fact. So even if nuclear as a renewable energy has a real opportunity on this scheme. It's going to be difficult to say, okay, we can build as is, as today. Because if we do so, we take all the, we have to force all the energy to produce at 0 CO2. So just same figures, but put on another way. If I took the EDF values, so today nuclear life cycle overall is emitting 1.4 million tons. Today, as an example, because this is what we are looking for the infrastructure construction, among the 1.4 million, in fact, we are emitting 200,000 tons a year. That's the situation of today, if I take EDF figures. So in 2050, we have to increase by 30% the electrical power generation. And in fact, to reduce that amount to this one, that means that for the construction part, to reduce from the 200,000 tons a year to 30,000 tons a year, which is a division by 7 of the CO2 emissions. So it's a challenge, clearly. There is an interest to do this, of course, out of the environmental aspect, is that optimizing CO2 consumption goes in the same direction as the capital cost optimization. So it's something interesting to have in mind. And it's also probably a better mobilization of the teams around the carbon reduction footprint. So there are some interest, in fact, to use this as an argument to manage the capital cost and to manage also the team mobilization. So there are some proposals. So what we did on that exercise is that we took a nuclear project, a large nuclear project, and in fact we did the total footprint, including the process, because the first thing you need to do before doing any measure, before doing any actions, is to measure. Otherwise, you don't know where you are. So today, on our test case, we went to, in fact, a calculation that is leading to build the facility is 140,000 tons of CO2, just for one facility, one building. Bear in mind that we have a goal, SNBC target, that is 30,000 tons for the entire country. So, and so here we are at a ratio of 3,500 kilo CO2 emitted per square meter built. Just to give you a few order of magnitude, this is our test case, this one. Okay, if you have to build a small hospital, it's between 20 to 40,000 tons. So this one is pretty large, and probably that's a pure estimate. But if you have to do one tranche, une tranche, tu sais comment? One reactor, it would be something like 500,000 tons. So in fact, there is a potential here because those facilities, they have a large emission at construction, so that means it's a potential of reduction. So, and also what we propose, in fact, I think we cannot go alone on this. We probably need all of the actors to get in. That means authority regulation to take on board this goal, such as French ASN. We need also the owners to take that on board and to start to think how to build with less CO2, which is today not real driver, I would say. And if we have some goals to fix, we can do a parallel with the IPCC proposals, which are saying, okay, today we are on top at 50 gigaton in the world, and we aim to go to 25 gigaton in year 2050. So we could take that and and do the same kind of stuff for nuclear buildings, saying, okay, today we built at this value, and we should go for half of it in 20 years. And accepting that nuclear plants were built first with a driver of autonomy, energetic autonomy. Then after the first accidents in the 80s, such as TMI and so on, they were driven by autonomy and nuclear safety principles. And today, in fact, we have to move on to say that our facility shall be driven by autonomy, nuclear safety, and carbon footprint, which is kind of a new proposal. And of course, we, as I said earlier, we cannot do this alone. That means we need both authorities and owners to take on board those new drivers, in fact. Otherwise, we will not succeed. So what are we doing, and what Egis is starting to do, in fact, on these topics? As I'm part of Egis, which is an engineering company, a French engineering company working on nuclear projects, we start to identify responsible in terms of climate organization. We are looking also for some exclusion rules for projects that are too emissive and where we do not want to participate on. We are starting to perform some KPIs on many values, such as the carbon footprint of what we are engineering, in fact. And we have developed first a series of tooling in order to measure, which is the first step, of course. So we have various tools to measure, and we started also to perform some proposals, because there are some easy win to do on CO2 in the way we can engineer and design facilities. Of course, one of it is to promote the extension of lifespan, because recycling and extending lifespan of the equipment is a plus. Because each time you have to build a new facility, of course, you will emit again. So in conclusion, I can say that first, the laws today are asking for a division by 15 of the emissions. And okay, today it's not a common driver, but it will come stronger and stronger in the years to come. The design is important to be adapted to this new constraint. So there is an opportunity for nuclear sector attractiveness, because if for the employees to come in, I think it's pretty attractive to say, okay, I'm going into a sector that is looking to this issue of carbon footprint. There is also for the owners an opportunity in terms of cost control, capital cost control, and of course risk mitigation on the image that you are vehiculing. I think that's all for my presentation. So if you want to ask questions on any slides, you're welcome.
You were mentioning some modeling that was done. You were mentioning some modeling that is done by this RTF company, who is modeling the network and the load coming from the different sector. Can we, is this a public document? Can we reach this?
Yes, so you're talking about the RTE study, which is the national grid owner. In fact, which concern is to say, okay, how am I going to plan the investment I have to do on the grid? So they had to perform this study in order to, because we have an increase of probably 30% of the demand, so they have to plan it. And so the RTE study is a public document. I think you can find it on the RTE internet site. RTE, Romeo Tango Echo. réseau de transport d'électricité, I think. I think they call it in French futur énergétique 2050. So the name of the study, if you are looking for it in French, is futur énergétique 2050. I think I put it here. Non, c'est au tout début. This one, the last one. I would recommend also the reading of the IPCC assessment report. No, number 6. Pardon. Ok, faut que je m'arrête. Ok. Bon ben, thank you. If you have any question, I will be